Now, for more on this story, we're pleased to be joined now by Congressman David Jolly of Florida. He's a member of the House Committee on Appropriations, as well as a member of the House Committee on Veteran Affairs. Congressman Jolly, it's great to have you here with us. I wanted to ask you quickly because I read, it's great to have you. I read your compromise proposal as well this morning.
Right.
Talk to us about where that differs from Susan Collins.
Well, so the Collins bill is similar, but we have some different provisions to protect due process. Listen, the Democratic proposal of the past few years has said no fly, no buy. We can all agree on that. Someone on a terror watch list that should be on there shouldn't be able to buy a firearm. But their position has been fatally flawed because there's no due process. So just as they've been wrong, I believe inaction on our side is wrong. Let's say if you're a terror threat, you shouldn't be able to buy a gun. But if you're wrongfully on there, you're entitled to due process. So under my legislation, it says no fly, no buy. But if you try to purchase a firearm, a Second Amendment protected privilege, and you are turned down by your government, the government has 10 days to notify you, and you have 30 days for a due process appeal.
And currently, these proposals that have been made, I believe, including the Toomey Mansion bill, there was no recourse if you were flagged and were not able to pass this background check, correct?
There is no recourse, and the only adjudication or administration rests in the hands of political appointees at the Department of Justice, which is why folks like Ted Kennedy and many other people have been on the no-fly list without knowing it. So my legislation doesn't say you have to be notified when you're on it. It protects law enforcement's ability to investigate. But if an American citizen goes to purchase a firearm and is turned down by their government because they are on a watch list they don't know about, I think that American citizen needs to know about it. Have a due process hearing, and under my bill, the government has the burden of proof by a preponderance of the evidence, a 51-49 preponderance of the evidence to prove why that individual should be prohibited from exercising their Second Amendment right. If they satisfy that burden, then the individual is prohibited from purchasing a firearm.
Well, I want to ask one more question about this before we talk about the Florida Senate race. We heard Josh Earnest there talking about Republicans and saying that they are scared of the NRA. What do you say to that?
You know, this is a time when both the left and the right have to rise above any advocacy organizations and, frankly, any politics. A lot of folks on the Hill are looking at November right now, and it's wrong. Look, I'm from Florida. We have a state that's united in mourning with the American people, with the people of Orlando, united in our resolve to finally do something. Let's overcome the partisanship of this issue and solve it. Let's say if you're on a watch list, you can't buy a gun, but let's protect due process and the Second Amendment rights of lawful American citizens. We can do that, John. This isn't too hard if we drop the swords of partisanship.
Yeah, it didn't seem to be too easy to do for Chris Murphy and Elizabeth Warren, but we'll leave them alone for a minute because I want to talk about Marco Rubio.
Sure.
You were running for his Senate seat, but now there's a question about whether he's going to get back into the race or not. Rubio spoke with CNN earlier today. Let's take a listen.
If there's been a change in our status, I'll be sure to let everyone know.
All right, so not much information from Marco Rubio. If there's a change in status, to let everybody know. But you've been a little bit more forthcoming. You believe he should get back in the race. What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, I've said if he gets in, I will support him. I ran a race for the U.S. Senate for 10 months, and in most polls was polling out front. For the last 3 weeks, though, the party leadership and Marco have indicated he'll likely run for re-election. I would support him. I will tell you, time is ticking. Our filing deadline in Florida is this Friday at noon or 1 p.m. Marco's doing a disservice to a lot of candidates by waiting this late if he intends to change his mind. It's time for Marco to make a decision, let the people of Florida know what his intentions are.
Yeah, this is a critical race, and there are a number of Democrats running.
Majority of the Senate.
Right, and this is key, and I agree with you. He needs to kind of do something or get off the pot, as they say. You're running your House race, too. This is important as well. You're running against Charlie Crist, who was a Republican once upon a time. How's that going?
Right. Well, this might be the most challenging race in the country for any House Republican. It was the subject of a redistricting, and so I am now running for re-election in a district Obama won by 12 against Charlie Crist, and everybody knows who Charlie Crist is. He's a formidable candidate. I'm going to run on a record that I have for the past 3 years in the House, and as a Republican, show that a Republican can give voice to everybody in their district and win a district that Obama won by 12 points, even against a candidate like Charlie Crist. I'm excited about November. You watch this race. It's going to be a first-class heavyweight battle.
Yeah, we know Charlie Crist is somewhat of a political shapeshifter, and I know that's going to be tough to pin him down on anything.
Sure.
But, if anybody can do it, you might be able to. I also want to talk about coattails. Donald Trump, the nominee here, had a little difficulty raising some money. He's got about $1.8 million of cash on hand in the war chest. I believe Ted Cruz, Ben Carson, and Marco Rubio still have more money in their campaign war chest. Hillary Clinton has $40 million more. You've talked about the fact that Washington pays way too much attention to how much fundraising goes on, at least in Congress. Is Trump's lack of fundraising prowess so far as scandalous as some would lead us to believe?
Listen, I've never been a Trump supporter in this race. I've yet to endorse him, but he's done it his own way, and he won the nomination, and he is showing very competitively going into November. I'm somebody who has also been able to win races without raising more money than my opponent. So money isn't everything, and that's a good thing in politics. But it is obvious that there's a stark disadvantage. Trump got himself this far. Trump's got a ways to go until November to demonstrate that he can lead the party and actually win an election in November.
But Congressman, you and I both know Hillary Clinton has spent tens of millions of dollars already in key battleground states on commercials in Ohio and in Florida, your home state. There's a new poll out from Quinnipiac University today which shows that Hillary now leads Donald Trump 47 to 39%. Trump gaining 7 points since the last Quinnipiac. Hillary Clinton gaining 7 points to the last Quinnipiac survey. Does that concern you at all?
Well, it does, but understand I've never endorsed Donald Trump, so I don't take to defending him either. I have grave reservations with some of his fiscal policies of suggesting we might print money to pay off the debt, pull out of NATO, bring back torture. There are several issues I have with Donald Trump, so I've yet to endorse him, and I don't know if I will do that before November. I believe if you're seeing that gap widen, it might be because of some of those policies that are leaving Republicans on the sidelines. To his credit, he's brought out a lot of new voters. I believe 2 million more voters this primary. He is due credit for that. But if he doesn't win it in November, it's all been for naught. So I think if he's his own strategist, he has to reevaluate where his campaign is to reposition himself for November, to get folks like myself to look at Donald Trump as a candidate we might support. I don't know if I'll get there. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. You know, you have your own race to worry about, and that's something the Republicans need to be concerned about, folks who are trying to prevent, there is even some discussion, although it might be a little far-fetched, about Democrats possibly taking over control of the House again. How do you separate yourself? About 30 seconds left to go. When do you make that decision that you need to forget about Donald Trump and focus solely on your own campaign?
Well, listen, importantly, I haven't endorsed him. And that's true when I was in the U.S. Senate race. So I don't need to worry about Donald Trump because he doesn't have my endorsement. I don't need to worry about defending him or being tied to him. But look, every candidate's going to run on their position on the issues. I'm going to do that. My colleagues in the House will. Trump will do that as well. There are some indications, though, that the Senate's in peril and the House might be as well. Listen, this is a tough time for Republicans, and we're ignoring the truth if we don't recognize that. We need quality candidates to run on a message that gives voice to everybody, recognizes the opportunity for everybody. That's what I'm going to run on.
Right. The White House is important, but so is the Congress. Congressman David Jolly, as always, it's great to talk with you. We appreciate it. All right, more to come here.
Thank you, John.
As always, thank you very much, Congressman. More to come here on Newsmax Prime, and don't forget to call in 877 Newsmax. Your voice is part of the conversation.